Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. And one of the top stories this morning is the latest shooting in Frederick, Maryland, which ended at the military base Fort Detrick. And once again, it's a reminder that so often in these mass shootings, the shooter is military. Again, military psychological operations control the news. When I first started, that was one of my first videos. Laying down that, I got to go back and find that old video and re-upload it. But that's in the headlines. We'll also talk about the Easter Sunday shooting in Birmingham, Alabama. But what I want to start with is the news of the death today of the active Congressman, 84-year-old Alcee Hastings, on 4/6, because again, this is a black man, and we know Biden just became number 46, and the story was that Biden carried the black vote by a huge percentage, and now one of the active stories in the news is how there's all these new voting measures to essentially suppress the black vote. But now we get this dead black politician on April 6th, and let's just see how it lines up with Jesuit Joe here. But again, 4/6, right? Biden's number 46. We said Biden would be number 46 because of all the 46 rituals in the election, including it being 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, and Joe Biden's Catholic, and Catholic equals 46 in gematria, and the only Catholic president to date, JFK, was killed at age 46. But anyhow, from Biden's birthday, November 20th, to this death today on 4/6, remember a year ago on this day, we were finding the body of Mav Kennedy, related to JFK, who was killed at age 46. But now a year later on 4/6, it's an active politician dead at 84. But from Biden's birthday, November 20th, to the death, April 6th, is 137 days. And of course, in gematria, Washington, D.C.'s 137. Washington, D.C.'s 137. So was White House. So was government. So was authority. And I forgot. How did I forget it? Here, I'll just show you. The word Democrat is 137. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse with the rules of numerology, 137. So a Democrat dead 137 days after the current Democrat president's birthday, who's number 46, who's already had a bunch of 46 rituals, including a year ago today, which was also a death ritual. And now the latest. So hold on. I got to plug that in. The thing that I don't like about my own website is I have to plug in each graphic one by one. It doesn't allow me to open and just upload 8 photos at the same time to the page like my old site did. So I notice a lot of times I'll forget to upload one of the images. But again, if you're new here, 137 is a special number. So many rituals about it in DC. We talk about it quite often. We talked about it in a huge way on February 2nd, the 33rd day of the year, because 137 is the 33rd prime, and these numbers are peas in a pod. But again, the man in the White House, number 46, loses a Democrat in office 137 days after his birthday on 4/6. Not a coincidence. And keep in mind, the man who died was 84, Joe Biden from Jesuit town Scranton, the Jesuits who run D.C., who encoded the language, who have it all synced up with the calendar. Joe's 78, the man who's dead's 84. Just like when we talked about John Thompson dead at 78, Sunday, August 30th, 2020, a date was 78 numerology, the first black coach to win the first championship in college basketball in 84 with Jesuit Georgetown there in D.C. But if you're new here, gematria is very simple. Jesuits 84 when you make the alphabetic order A1, B2, C3, D4, up to Z's the 26th letter. You just add up the words using the alphabetic order. Jesuits 78 when you run the alphabetic order in reverse. Z is 1 back to A is 26. See how Jesuits 21 like the year is 2021? That's when you use the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. So the difference would be J is the 10th letter. So in the green cipher where Jesuits 84, J is worth 10. E is worth 5. S is worth 19. U is worth 21. I is worth 9. T is worth 20. In the blue cipher, instead of J being 10, it's the numerology of 10. And the numerology of 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. So J is 1. E is 5 because it's already a single-digit letter. S, the 19th letter, the numerology of 19 is 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. So S is 1. use the 21st letter. The numerology of 21 is 2 plus 1 is 3, so U is 3, I is 9, T becomes 2 because T is 20, 2 plus 0 is 2. So that's why you get the smaller value, Jesuit 21. But think about it. This is synced up with Joe Biden's 78th birthday. He's dead at 84 and he's dead in 21. And then the remaining ciphers, the reverse alphabetic order with the rules numerology where it's 42. And I have to look more into his career. I'm sure this man's gone through some 42 rituals in his life in light of being a black celebrity. It's pretty much every black celebrity goes through some 42 ritual that's usually a shaming. And for Paul Pierce, Friday, April 2nd, caught drunk with strippers and now fired from his multi-million-dollar TV contract. This is all just ritual shaming. We just had Shaba on from the Panther 21. And remember, the Black Panthers, as Shaba talked about, he realized it was controlled. It was controlled by the government. Who controls the government? The Jesuits do. That's why all the original Black Panther meetings were in Catholic churches. But they were indicted on April 2nd in history, 4-2. And just the same type of stuff, year after year, same type of rituals. So, we'll get to more on his name and parallels to other. We'll talk about Martin Luther King Jr. in a moment, how his assassination was a major Jesuit ritual. But again, here we are on 4-6. I just want to remind people the significance of the Catholic ciphers with the 46 and 145. Remember, in the Catholic Old Testament, there's 46 books. In the Protestant Old Testament, there's 39, so it's different. There's also 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament. And the Jesuits, who were created by Jews who converted from Judaism to Catholicism, who brought with it the understanding of Kabbalah and Gematria and letters and numbers and all that, it's very clear that they're responsible for our language. And that's why the Jewish nation of Israel, which was the product of the world wars created by the Jesuits, that's why Israel was created in the aftermath on May 14th, 14/5. Again, the Jewish section of the book of the Bible is paid tribute to by the numbers in the English language. And again, 16th century, Jesuits, calendar, all synced up. And the language, and the English language standardized with the spellings we use today. But remember, JFK was number 35, killed at age 46. There's only been 2 Catholic presidents today, JFK and now Biden. The election was confirmed for Biden on January 7th, 7-1. It was called in his favor November 7th, which was 353 days after his birthday, the 71st prime. And again, the election, November 3rd, was 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Inauguration Day, if I just misspoke, the election was 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Inauguration Day was 35 days after the Pope's birthday for Joe Biden. So, again, the rituals just really couldn't be any more clear. And making this all the more sick, Inauguration Day was January 20th. This man is dead today, April 6th. 76 days after his birthday. And remember, the Million Man March was October 16th, the day leaving 76 days left in the year. Slave, Negro, Rasta, Blues, 76. The first black president, Barack Obama, 76. His new book, A Promised Land, 76, which reminds of the Bible and the verse Acts 7:6, about 400 years of slavery in a foreign land, which, according to our history books, was August of 2019. And again, we've been talking a lot about that in recent years and all that matters about that verse. Part of understanding Acts 7:6 is why we were able to say, end of 2019, somewhere in 2020, about 19 years after 9/11, things are going to get uglier here than they already are, and they sure did. But again, because Acts 7:7, right after Acts 7:6, is how that nation who's responsible for her 400 years of slavery is punished. And in Gematria, United States equals 77. And for the record, today is 76 days after Inauguration Day. You could also say it's the 77th day of Biden being president. And remember, D.C.'s on the 77th Meridian West. And when the election was called for him, he was at the tail end of being 77. Then he turned 78 November 20th, the Jesuit number. But here's the other thing. From Alcee Hastings' birthday, September 5th, to his death today is 213 days later. And remember, in Satanic Gematria, that number connects to death. We always talk about Tupac Shakur. His last album, All Eyes on Me, came out February 13th, 213. And then he was shot 200 213. Well, he was shot before that, but he died 213 days later, September 13th. And of course, Tupac Shakur's 139. But remember, Tupac's mother was a Black Panther, which has that 213 coded on it. And if you write out Black History Month, it's also got the 213. There's a lot of things to the Black History Month, but just for now, the 213 thing. So this black politician dead 213 days after his birthday. And when you do Sumerian gematria, that's just where you multiply the alphabetic order times 6. Death is 228. His name, Alcee Hastings, has that 228 in it. And remember, the only born American with the most simple cipher, United States of America, is 228. A nation born out of death and genocide and killing and always been at war. But United States of America is 228. But the only born American with a holiday named after them is Martin Luther King Jr., who's also got the 228. And you see how Martin Luther King Jr. is 93? Remember, so is Malcolm X. They only met one time in history, March 26, 64, a date with 93 numerology. They were both killed at age 39, like the 39 books in the Old Testament for Protestant Bibles. But Alcee Hastings has been in Congress since 93. And again, talking about the same numbers day after day. We were just talking about how big the 93 was with the news of DMX on the 93rd day of the year in a vegetative state. And again, United States of America and the two original ciphers we learned. Again, I learned from Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. He shares these two ciphers in his book. He doesn't give you a lot of information, but he just puts the information out there. So I just began to research with it. And, just shortly after learning about it, I ran across the synchronicities with like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I was like, wow, look at that. And anyway, those same patterns, they've just persisted all throughout history. The whole thing with George Floyd, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 93 on the 93rd meridian, killed in a major ritual by the same numbers that have tormented black people throughout black history. At least that's what we're told, I mean. But the point is to understand the number rituals. And again, this man's dead at age 84, right? In the United States of America, in a clear ritual for the U.S. president. That also means that he died 152 days before his upcoming birthday, 152. And remember, we talked about this with Joe Biden. We said, isn't it strange that the year Joe Biden becomes president, President's Day falls on February 15th? It doesn't do that every year, but this year it fell on February 15th, written 15/2 like 152, and Joe Biden's 152. And that's the 46th day of the year. President's Day falls on the 46th day of the year after the 46th president, this massive 46 ritual. And remember, there was all sorts of things, like how they got the New Radicals, a one-hit wonder band from the 90s, to play for the inauguration for number 46. And again, think about New Radicals, Radical Concepts. Again, and look up their hit song, You Get What You Give, that they performed. Read the lyrics to that song. We covered that. Go back and watch if it's still up. They took down a lot of stuff that I put up. But again, just so many rituals with this number, you guys. We talked about how New Radicals was 46 and 71, like Catholics 71 and 46. And again, Inauguration Day was on Pope Francis' 35th day of his age. And of course, Pope Francis is 84 right now, the first Jesuit Pope. And, that the name of that song fits in, again, the definition of radical: a person who advocates thorough or complete political or social reform, a member of a political party or a part of a party pursuing such aims. And again, you guys, we're going through radical changes. Being told more and more what to do by authority, submitting. You just see how people are submitting in fear. They're trusting their authority. Their authority telling them, give up your life, stay in your house, give up your business. Socially distance from your friends and family. Don't gather for holidays. Don't gather for birthdays. Don't gather for spiritual ceremonies. Again, this stuff, man, it's just... But yeah, look up the lyrics to this song, and again, you guys, it's all ritual, and it's truly all mockery by the numbers. Remember, Joe Biden was sworn in on the Douay-Rheims Bible, which has that gematria of 78, like Jesuit in the... just after he turned 78. And don't forget that the man who did the ceremony was the former president of Jesuit Georgetown, and he did the funeral as well for Beau Biden, who died at age 46. 201 days before the Pope's birthday, like Inauguration Day is 20/1. And Again, the Pope's the first Jesuit Pope, the first to live in Suite 201, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about 201 a million times before. If not, you really should read my book. You'll get all caught up on the 201 number games. And if you just search my name, you'll find it, Zachary Hubbard. But again, 201 is the real big number at the Jesuits, and we'll talk more about that here in a second with today's latest shooting. Not far from the federal capitol. But yeah, a year ago today, Mauve Kennedy, relative of JFK, who was killed at 46, her and her son found drowned in water. And there was a lot to that ritual, but Mauve 46, like Catholic, like sacrifice. 1 year later, we're talking about another death. You know, Mauve Kennedy's death's in my book. And the bigger web of that, but here we are a year later. I mean, it's just deja vu. It's clear it's another ritual for Jesuit Joe. And don't forget, her death was here, let me go back and get it right. Let me get it right. Okay, Mauve Kennedy, found dead April 6, 2020. They disappeared days before that. And then, I forget how that lined up with, I think it was this. I think it was Inauguration Day. No, it wasn't. It must have been the election day. Yeah, it was the election day, November 3rd, 2020. That was 211 days later, right? And remember, 211 is the 47th prime. President's 47. Government's also 47. So is authority. So is Republicans. So is Democrats. So is D.C. Biden had been in office for 47 years at the time he became president-elect. 211, the 47th prime. A former president's relative, the last Catholic one, and a ritual connected to number 46, the next Catholic one. And with regards to 211 being the 47th prime and all roads leading to Rome, don't forget Francis equals 47, as does France, where the Jesuits were created, where the Scottish Rite came to power, where a lot of the founders studied, and Vatican's 47. The first Jesuit pope is Francis. The Jesuits are from Paris, France originally. So, don't forget Paris, France, Washington, D.C., Society of Jesus. They all equate. Again, if you're new here, these are things to remember. Paris, France. See the 56-187? Washington, D.C., 56-187. You see the Society of Jesus? Here's one of those government Jesuit figures that people are entrusting way too much in. You see how Anthony Fauci has the 56-187? Compare his name with Washington, D.C. You know, guy who's been in office since 84. But Anthony Fauci, Washington, D.C. I see I'm covering up part of it here. Let me shrink myself. But he's the exact same in all four ciphers. And, yeah, so anyway, I mean, this Alcee Hastings, very clear ritual. And I mean, honestly, you guys, these people plan stuff out so far ahead. I would not be surprised if the day that guy took office, they had his planned demise with the planned Joe Biden being in president, probably all written down somewhere, all planned out. He'll be the perfect ritual. By the way, he's dead on a date with 51 numerology. Alcee Hastings is 51 like federal. You know, federal representative. But in office from January 3rd, 93 to today. Little more than 28 years. God, you know what's funny? Okay, so today's the 96th day of the year, right? April 6th. So that means he's dead 93 days after the anniversary of becoming a congressman in 93. You know what I mean? It's nasty. I remember when I was finishing my first book. My first book is heavy. It's big. My first book, when I was finishing it, chapter 18 on these rituals of killing people by the same repetitive numbers in Black history and whatnot. I remember that, God, which African leader was it? But there was an African leader who was essentially just forced right out of office, and it was just a huge 93 ritual. I ended up tucking in the book, but just there's been so many things since then that there's just been countless examples like that. We talk about the same things literally day after day, and we were just talking about 93 and the ritual with black men in history with DMX on the 93rd day of the year. 3 days later, Alcee Hastings. And just like we're saying behind the whole DMX thing and the hip-hop rituals, it's the Jesuits, same people behind your federal government. Again, all roads lead to Rome. Okay, so let's see. With regards to the most recent shootings that have made national headlines, nice post here at 4:40 in the morning, early hours of April 5th. On Easter Sunday, there was a shooting killing 1 and injuring 5, and the youngest victim was a 4-year-old on 4/4, right? April 4th, Sunday, Easter Sunday. April 4th is the 94th day of the year, and this happened in Birmingham, and in the most simple cipher, Birmingham is 94, right? But April 4th also leaves 271 days left in the year, which is the 58th prime number. And notice, in the two original ciphers, the ones that we talked about for the first 3 years, because we didn't do reverse back then, but in the two original ciphers, Birmingham 94 and 58. And on the 94th day of the year, the day leaving 271 days, which is the 58th prime number, you get a shooting in Birmingham. And this is what I've been educating about the whole time. If you just know these simple ciphers, you can pretty much see through the news each day. When you learn the reverse, as we learned 3 years into the study, you see even more. Because again, let me just come back up here, or let me just make a point here about this post. Again, Alcee Hastings died 137 days after Joe Biden's birthday. And, right away, Washington, D.C. is 137. So we knew that. But we didn't know that White House was 137 until 3 years into the study. We didn't know government was 137 either. We knew authority was 137, but we didn't know Democrat was 137. So if I had given you this presentation in 2013, we would have still been like, okay, what are the odds? And I would have also pointed out 137 is the 33rd prime, and in the most pure cipher, which we knew back then, Federal Masonry Secrecy Order, they're all 33. Just like the House of the Temple in D.C., the Masonic headquarters has 33 pillars on the outside, each 33 feet tall, which is connected to Kundalini, which is about the 33 bones in the human vertebrae, and spiritual ascension up the vertebrae, and how people in person is both 33 in the most pure cipher. Both words are 33 as well. But we wouldn't have saw the Democrat, we wouldn't have saw the government, and we wouldn't have saw the White House. And that's why as soon as we realized to run it in reverse and just look, we were like, oh my God, man, it's clearly exactly how they coded out the language. Mind-blowing. I mean, my mind was blown when we made the reverse discovery. I was just like, wow. I just went back through all my old work. That's how I tested it at first. I was like, let me go back and look at my old work and see how the reverse fits in. And I was just like, wow. Just everything blew my mind. For example, we saw Prince's death coming before it happened, and one of the numbers I talked about when we said we're going to read about Prince's death soon was 118. But when Prince died, I still didn't know reverse gematria yet, so I didn't know the elevator was 118 because they found him in an elevator. Prince died 4/21/2016, April 21st. We found out reverse gematria at the end of 2016, so it's probably like 6-7 months later that we discovered reverse gematria. And again, and then I saw that elevator is also 46 because we've been educating a lot about sacrifice in 46 and Genesis 46. So I was like, God, no wonder, man. And Eric Prince, the guy from Blackwater, his father was found dead in an elevator, and then Prince died in an elevator. It's just, again, man, it's because these people, symbolic, ritualistic, gematria-oriented. That's why there's the song Gematria, the killing name. That's why there's the song Murder by Numbers by the Police, where killing's the sport of the elite. It's as simple as ABC 1, 2, 3. And again, the other obvious thing about, this work being the truth is there's a reason they don't want it up here. There's a reason they keep taking it down over and over for illegitimate reasons. Accusing videos like this of being hate speech. It's like, what? Where was the hate speech? Somebody could say I'm hating on the Catholic Church or Jesuits, but I always clarify, I always say, there's plenty of people that go to Jesuit schools who aren't part of this. There's plenty of people who are of the Catholic faith who aren't a part of this, but still, you got to still ultimately know what is the entity that is behind what we're playing out. And then the people who are part of those networks, they need to become part of the solution and say, you know what? This is a pretty open and closed case. Maybe we should all boycott and not give the Jesuits their money through their universities. Again, they do have good schools, but it's obvious that's also where they recruit from and find their agents and find the ones that will be right for, the more sinister things they're about. Okay, but anyway, Birmingham on Easter Sunday, the 94th day of the year, perfect spot for a shooting. And, absolutely perfect. And the two most classic ciphers, 94 and 58, it connects to the date. Plus, how many more things do we got to talk about with 58 and shootings as well, right? The word terror is 94. Hold on. But we just, again, King Soopers, the March 22nd shooting, the day that Elgin Baylor died at 86 before Baylor won the championship with 86. But the same day this shooting, they called it 58 minutes of terror, right? 58 minutes of terror. King Soopers, Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, Secret Society. It's all 58. And again, James Egan Holmes with the orange hair. He's got the 58. And then we just got the shooting in Orange, California, where they coded the 58 on it. But 58 just shows up again and again. The Vegas shooting, 58 victims, 58 days after the governor's birthday, whose birthday was 5/8, and he was 54 at the time, and Jesuit Order is 54, and Freemasonry is 58. And again, modern Freemasonry was created by the Jesuit Order in 1717, and D.C. is the city of the Jesuits and the Masons. By the way, with regards to all the Jesuit stuff, remember Jesuit has that gematria of 84, so does Masonry, like United States of America. We're talking about a man dead at age 84 today. Today, April 6th, is the 96th day of the year, and Freemason's 96. And as we'll get to, Frederick, he's got those Jesuit numbers. Frederick M.D. got the Freemason 96, the Jesuit 201. But again, the federal government, Jesuits, Masons, secret societies, and high places. With regards to the Birmingham shooting, again, it was April 4th, and we said there'll probably be another shooting on Easter. We just had one where they, just a few years back where they blamed it on the black man, Stevie Steve, and again on Easter Sunday where the physical description of Jesus, in my opinion, would make you think that he was someone of a darker complexion and maybe some African ancestry based on the description of his skin and the fact that his hair is compared to like wool. But anyway, I was talking about that years ago with the Stevie Steve ritual on Sunday. Birmingham, where this happened, is predominantly black city. So on Easter Sunday, you get another shooting. And they said it happened in Patton Park. Patton Park, well, Patton reminds you of war, obviously. But Patton Park got some numbers. 132 like Catholic Church, like Roman Catholic, like United States of America, like how from the establishment of the Bavarian Illuminati, May 1st, 1776, which was created by a Jesuit, Adam Weishaupt, to September 9th, 1776, the day the United States of America was named, was a span of 132 days and 132 rooms in the White House. 42 goes in with the black thing. It goes in with the Jesus thing, 42 generations to Jesus. New Testament's 42 in that same cipher. Freemason and Jesuit are 42. 138 goes with federal. And then 57 goes with Georgetown, the Jesuit University, and Scottish Rite. So you got your Freemason, Jesuit numbers in the Patton Park. Reminder of war. Guns, war, Patton. Killing on Easter. Wars over religion. Again, all the elements are here. And then, what else am I forgetting? There was one other thing. I know I noted this somewhere. Hold on. I'm skipping something. Oh, I know what it is. Birmingham, Alabama. Here, let me just write out Birmingham. You see how it's 58 and 59? 59, Jesus Christ, 59, Septenary. Another number stamped on black history. Shooting on Easter, predominantly black city. But Freemasonry, again, is 58 and 59 in those same ciphers. 59 is the 17th prime. Mason 17. Modern Freemasonry created in 1717. This nation created 59 years later. I know I explain these things all the time, but there's always a new person here. And if you write out Birmingham, Alabama, it's got that 71 and that 109. Well, again, African Americans got the 71, but Catholic 71, right? Catholic, Easter, pagan holidays turned into Christian holidays, in a large part by the Catholic Church. But the 109 matters because shooting is also 109. So, again, you're trying to keep a symbol with somebody, just show them the alphabetic order, with the rules of numerology, how Birmingham's 94 and 58, and how this connected in two ways to the date. And then 4-4, shooting, Easter Sunday 44, and then 4, the number connected to death. All the headlines emphasize that a 4-year-old was a victim. 4 on 4-4, and the same numbers. And you just start to pay attention. You see how often the media does things like this, posting at 4:40 in the morning, the story. I was looking for I was actually surprised on Easter Sunday. I didn't catch, I don't know if this was reported somewhere on Easter Sunday, but I was expecting there to be a shooting in the news on Easter Sunday, and I didn't see it in the day. So I found out about this after the fact, after Easter, and maybe they didn't report on it until the next day, and it starts to make me wonder, did it even happen? Did it even happen? Now, today, just 2 days after Easter Sunday, another shooting in the news. And we just see how this is what happens, right? When they want to get something in your head, man, you start to hear a lot of stories about that. They really want you focused on, racism towards Asians right now. And probably everybody is probably saying the same thing. Man, I've never seen such a focus on Asian racism. I mean, probably hasn't been one like this since the World Wars. Internment camps and whatnot. But all this focus on wrongdoing towards Asians right now, and then all of a sudden they just start blasting you with story day after day after day, and they all unfold by the numbers too. But then at the same time, all this focus on shootings. And they kind of jumped off in March with the shooting of Asians in Atlanta at the spas. But now just another one, and they're becoming a blur because they come so fast. But just look at the numbers here. Frederick, it has that 56 and 79, right? 52 is also government and authority, but that 56 and 79, Society of Jesus, those are big numbers with them, the 56, 79. And again, government 52, authority 52, spelled correctly. Republicans got that. Or no, it's not Republican. What am I thinking? It's White House got the 52. President's got the 52. So another number connected to authority, and all this comes from Kabbalah, which is 52. If you write out the Kabbalah, as it's commonly spelled, 52. And don't forget, the ultimate authority for the Jesuits is the Pope, 52, and the calendar's named after the Pope, and we got 52 weeks in a year, and Earth is 52. And anyway, special number as well. But the Jesuit numbers are there. Frederick, Maryland. If you write out the full name, Frederick, Maryland Mary Catholic Church, but it's got that 86 and 103. You see that? Jesuits got the 86 and 103. And then the 167 is the 39th prime. Federal's also got that 39, as does Masonry. The 292, I'm not so sure about the 292. It could be part of the riddle, but I don't know what it is if it is. But then also, if you write it the way you write it on an envelope, Frederick, MD, 96, today's the 96th day of the year. 60 is like the words police and order. 66 is the mass shooting number. I don't know if this technically counts as a mass shooting, though, because I think you have to shoot 4 or more people in the mass shooting. And they're saying 2 shot, and then the shooter was killed. But Frederick, MD's got the 201, the big Jesuit number. Again, the Jesuit order is 201. The founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius of Loyola, 201. The first Jesuit Pope, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, 201. First to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican, which is known as the Domus Sanctae Martyr, which is 201. And again, just all the other 201 we stuff. There's just a million more. Just same numbers, man. Same numbers. Jesuit fingerprints all over the place. Masonic fingerprints all over the place. D.C., the land of the Jesuits and the Masons. Secret societies. Secrets in plain sight. Fraternal Order of Police with the Masonic handshake, the checkerboard floor. And notice they said the shooter was a 38-year-old, right? It's like, how many times is it the same things? The movie poster, Murder by Numbers, with the 3-8. Here the guy shooting people, said to be 38. Again, Murder 38, also 83, like the song Murder by Numbers by The Police came out in 1983. Look up the lyrics to Murder by Numbers by The Police if you never heard that song. Sandra Bullock, 83, the star of Murder by Numbers. Killing, Death, R.I.P., Gematria, English, 38. The song Gematria, 38. The killing name, 38. The first member of that band, Slipknot, who made that song, died at age 38. Again, same stuff day after day. And also, they said he shot up Riverside Tech Park and then he drove back to the military base. And what I would like to know is if there really was a shooting today and they're saying he was part of the Navy, a Navy corpsman. But if there really was a shooting today and 2 people were targeted and shot, I want to know more about these two people and what they're. I just think of like the businesses that are typically in like a riverside tech park. Big telecom companies, big computer companies. Is it possible that these two people were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, giving up information they weren't supposed to be doing, just doing something that went against their orders or their expectations, or that's a threat to the military industrial complex? So then they got their 38-year-old Manchurian down at the base and they sent him out to take these two targets, and then they turn that into a national news story that becomes part of a gun grab that serves another agenda? I mean, is it like that? Why are so many of these shooters former military? And how come YouTube keeps taking down my videos for hate speech for asking questions like that? Really? I can't ask if my government, is up to no good? I thought that was the thing about being American. But then you see, like, YouTube, if you start to read their fine print, they're basing their rules out of concepts coming out of other countries. It's like, wait a minute. I thought these were American companies. Why are they basing their decision and policy making based on this agreement out of Europe or these ideas over here? I thought we're in the land of free speech. I thought we're in the land where we're supposed to question our government. I thought we were told that we're supposed to protect our way of life from enemies, foreign and domestic. I've noticed my whole life, it seems that the enemies are right here. They want to scare me with all these boogeymans I know nothing about, but I see all these enemies right here clearly working against me every day. But notice, just Riverside Tech Park, 191, like Society of Jesus, like active shooter. And again, for people who are new here, we talked about these same patterns a million times over the years in so many of these shootings. This is nothing new. 51 date numerology federal. They come out and say it was a Navy corpsman. That's got gematria 64. Navy's got gematria 46. Today's April 6th. It can be written 6-4 or 4-6. Of course, kills 64, sacrifice 46. It was months ago, a woman called in and she said that she found my work and she was always suspicious of her father's death, who was in the Navy. He just seemed to die so unexpectedly and quickly, and it just, it never made sense to her. And, at the time she was saying he just dropped dead at age 62. And the time I've been doing this work, I've seen so many rituals with Navy in 62 and 46. And she didn't say that her dad was in the Navy, but she just said military and he dropped dead at 62. And if you were watching that live stream, it was a Wednesday night TFR episode. I said to her, I just got to ask, was your father in the Navy? And she said, yeah, how'd you know that? And I said, well, I didn't know that, but I just, so many times over the years when I'm decoding Navy stories, it's 62. It's also 46 a lot. And, I mean, again, you guys, just the same stuff day after day. What are the odds that it would be this way? A Navy guy goes and shoots up two people and then drives back to Fort Detrick. Also, with regards to this whole 201 connection and Frederick, MD, being so close to Fort Detrick, remember, Event 201 was the coronavirus pandemic simulation, October 18, 2019, put on the same day the Military World Games began in Wuhan, China. And the Military World Games were started in Rome, the land of the Catholic Church and Jesuits, in 95. And the Jesuits were created to counter the 95 Theses. And that's why they were recognized by Rome on September 27th, the day leaving 95 days left in the year. And the author of the 95 Theses was Martin Luther, not to be confused with Martin Luther King Jr., who took on that name in tribute to Martin Luther. But Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 68, which was a leap year, so it was the 95th day of the year because it was a leap year. Jesuits, 95. It's weird how the Jesuits do themselves, though, with sports. They do, sacrifice their own teams a lot. Yesterday, the Christian school beat the Jesuit school on the 95th day of the year. Interesting. It's just so interesting. But, again, Event 201, the same day as the Military World Games in Wuhan, China, the Jesuits consider themselves a military order. That's why their leader's called the Superior General. And, again, just to remind about that, Adolfo Nicolas, the Superior General, the former Superior of the Hold on. Where'd he go? Right here. Adolfo Nicolas, the former Superior General of the Jesuits, he died May 20th, 2020 at age 84. Superior General's 84, like Jesuits 84. We were talking about the death of Alcee Hastings at 84. When you write out the Jesuit order, it's also 84. The Catholic Church is 84. The U.S. federal government's had relations with the Holy See, the Vatican, since 84. Anthony Fauci, the Jesuit's been head of NIH since 1984. Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope, he's now 84. He turned 84 December 17, 2020. He's got the 84 birth numerology. But look at this. Just scrolling down, there's a lot here. Oh, by the way, from the current superior general's age to the death of Adolfo Nicholas was his 191st day of his age, Society of Jesus. But the day that Adolfo Nicholas died was May 20th, the day leaving 225 days left in the year. His name's 225 when you run the alphabetic order in reverse. With the reduction ciphers, his name's the exact same as Jesuit order. Again, this is why you realize in the 16th century, the Catholic Church gives us the calendar in tribute to the Pope. The English alphabet, which comes from the Catholic Church, and the monk Burfirth, is standardized with the 26-letter alphabet, all at the same time, in the year that the Jesuits came into being. I mean, the whole language pays tribute to them. You see how day after day the rituals all point back to them. It's just so obvious. We live in the world that they created for us, and people should really understand that just through the calendar. Whose calendar are we on? Is it really the year 2021? No, it's the year 2021 according to the Catholic Church. We're living on their time. We're living on their clock. We're using their language. English is being spread across the world. It's their language. The Catholic Church has always wanted to dominate the world, spread its influence, power, control. They have the big Vatican. You know, they say they're about Jesus, who was a man about not being materialistic and was being about, serving other people. The Catholic Church flaunts its wealth, power, military might. Where did Jesus ever rep any of these things? Where did Jesus ever say he was about, military might, wealth, materialism, living in a palace, Did Jesus dress in costumes? He just dressed in like the bare minimum, right? So it's just, and somebody else say, well, Jesus isn't even real. Okay, that might be all and well. I don't know if Jesus is real. I think God is real. And, but the point is, the story of Jesus is a story of a man who was, about service of others, not about wealth and power. And some people would also say he was delusional and insane because he said he was the Son of God and you could only get to God through him. And honestly, that could be true. But to me, I don't really understand that. And this whole story goes back to the Greeks and Rome and other empires, and there's similar stories that came before it. But still, the point is, if you follow the teachings of Jesus, you're probably not doing too bad off, because that is mostly the way to be, And these Jesuits, again, they're like wolves in sheep's clothing. They might be called the Society of Jesus, but yeah, there's a lot more to this. We covered it, nearly a year ago now, but yeah, man, these Jesuits, they're anything but good. And granted, there could be somebody who goes to a Jesuit university who's a great person. So I'm talking about, when I say these Jesuits, I'm talking about the ones who are behind the rigging, behind the murders, behind the agendas. That's who I'm talking about. And also in the land of, Twilight Zone, yesterday met a gentleman, and he said that, again, I was, pounding pavement on the corner. He stopped by last week and said he would stop by again, and he stopped by yesterday, and he held a sign with us. And I told him if he came back and joined me, I'd get him a beer, because he said he'd like to get a beer, so I said we'd do that. So I took him out for a beer afterwards, and then I drove him back to his hotel. And he said that the day kind of started out with a bummer because there was a shooting outside, and there was a body with, the drape over it in the street. And when I dropped him off, the crime scene was still there. The police were all parked around there. I think they were in their cars. I noticed there was one guy in an apartment. To the right of where I'm not filming, there was a police officer just standing in the parking lot there. He wasn't talking to anybody. I don't know if they were just monitoring the scene. But the one officer who I did talk to as I was walking up to this, who was in his car, I just said, where did the shooting happen? He said about where that little setup is there near the sidewalk. And this whole trail goes back into the apartment complex. Like they must have been running out of the apartment and the shooting happened here or something like that. But I just noticed, I was like, wow, where the final, because they got a whole trail of these yellow things going back to the right, numbered all the way back, all the, I guess, spots of evidence. But then where it ends is number 38, near where the death was. I was just like, what? Like, okay, I know there could be an organic side. There really could have been 38 pieces of evidence. But then another part of me is like, man, wouldn't it be something to find out wouldn't it be something to find out? And I'm not saying this is what's going on, but it could be going on. Wouldn't it be something to find out that there's like a corrupt, like military psyops unit in like every police department in the nation? And they create actual crime and violence that doesn't need to happen, just as like that psychological reminder of like, dangers everywhere. You need your police and government to keep you safe. And Again, the gentleman heard shots and he saw the covered up person, but he didn't actually, I don't think he actually saw the shooting. What if it's like a what if the whole scene's just created? It's just like I'd like to think that happened, but again, in this town, homicides definitely do happen. There is a lot of drug related violence, which again is only happening because of bad policy. Policy, police, politics, all those words with the same beginning, they're all related. Police enforce policy made by the politicians. And had the politicians decided long ago there wasn't going to be a drug war, but instead, treatment for drug addicts, and just said, you know what? Drugs are legal, but here, we're going to give you a lot of education, a little ganja, a little cannabis here and there can open the mind. Too much could make you paranoid and uncomfortable. So be careful with that. You don't want to be, it's not fun being paranoid and uncomfortable. But a little bit here, could provoke, some creative thought, help you write an essay. Okay, and then we got cocaine. Don't abuse this, There's health consequences here if you go too hard. But hey, maybe again, people could get a warning that I saw so many people when I was down at Arizona State get addicted to cocaine because it was just everywhere. And again, me, I've always been a pretty responsible person. I don't eat very much junk food. I'll dabble here and there. I've been out at a party and been offered a line and did it and had man, you just feel so good. You want to just like have a good time and dance with the ladies. But again, you realize it's like, okay, this is special too. I don't want to abuse this. I don't want to make this. So again, you got to know your limits. You got to know, are you an addictive personality? I mostly don't have an addictive personality, which I don't know, I guess is a blessing. But one time I said this and somebody got so mad at me. They're like, Zach, you should never recommend cocaine. I know so many people have ruined their life over cocaine. Exactly. Okay, I hear you. And I wasn't necessarily recommending it, but I said it's nice to have experiences in life. But again, I'm just saying, imagine if you lived in a world where there was real education about how drugs are, the good and bad, what you have to watch out for, like heroin. Heroin will make you feel, I've never done heroin, but you guys who follow me know I used to pee for my neighbor who got addicted to heroin, and I was just trying to pee for him because I felt so bad because he had a wife and 2 children, and he just finally got a job promotion. He'd finally climbed up. He worked for this whole place from the time he got out of high school until his early 30s, and right when he climbed up to the top, for some way, he ended up trying heroin, and he got hooked, and he just looked like shit too, man. But he ended up even getting fired at his job. I mean, I tried to help him out, but the point is, he was just a mess. Like, he was begging his wife to sleep outside so he could do the heroin out there. It's like, well, you want to sleep outside? Anyway, heroin's a mess, you guys. Stay away from that stuff. You might feel really great, but God, it will mess up your life, man. I mean, and realize it's not an accident that after the wars, the country got flooded with heroin and the opium production went back up. They want addicts. They want people killing themselves. All this stuff is related to the agenda. They want to depopulate. I mean, it would be amazing to see how many people died of overdoses. Sometimes I even wonder about my neighbor. I haven't talked to him since I moved, which was, middle of 2018. And I wouldn't be surprised if I looked it up and he's got an obituary, man. I mean, he was looking bad. He just could not fix his problem. And again, he had a child and stuff. It's just, so I was trying to pee for him for a while just because I was hoping he'd get, fix his problem, but there was no solving his problem. He needed treatment. And again, there are treatment places in this world, but there's also a lot of places you can go and you end up in trouble trying to get treatment, and just cultural attitudes toward it. People disown you. But anyway, I'm just saying, had our politicians gone a route many years ago of saying, we're not going to make it illegal, but we're going to treat people who are addicts, and we're going to educate people about how to be responsible and avoid these problems that so many people have, we'd be a way healthier society. Granted, the reason the government doesn't go that way is because it's way less profitable to them. Our government is a corporation. There's a lot of money in drugs on all sides of it. They're funneling the drugs into the country. I mean, again, they funnel the drugs into the country, just like the war and the opium. Then, because they have these laws against using drugs, they incarcerate so many people, and then they end up being in prison, and then they're working for corporations that use the prison labor. But the corporations, instead of having to pay minimum wage or $10 or $15 an hour, they're able to employ these prisoners to do the work for pennies on the dollar. I was just talking to a gentleman who said he was, working hard while he was in prison, and he was making 40-some cents an hour. Yeah, that was Paul, who drove out from Seattle to stand with me on the corner in Yakima. He just came out one nice day on the weekend. He said he wanted to meet me, and he was a young man, but he'd done some time for. He got busted trying to sell some drugs. But he said, he talked to a lot of older people, and in talking to him, he was very mature and way ahead of his time. This young man, Paul, and he said when he was in prison, he didn't care that he's only getting paid 40 cents an hour. He's just working hard, developing that work ethic, and he knew when he got out of prison, he'd have that work ethic, and he'd make a better wage, and he'd be better off the rest of his life going forward. So, again, that's a reminder, too. I mean, if people can straighten out their life, a lot of people do straighten out their life in the criminal justice system because they're living in a cage, and they don't want to live like that, and they realize, like, I don't ever want to do this again. But then a lot of times they get out, and there's no opportunities, and then even though they don't want to do it, they end up doing it, and they end up back in the cage. But all this stuff's by design, and if we had better policies, these things wouldn't happen. But we're controlled by greedy, corrupt people who want to exploit us and use us and abuse us and maintain slavery. And government really is slavery. A lot of people don't understand that. Government really is slavery. On some level, we're all being used and abused as slaves. I mean, all of us have fees that we just owe the government. We buy something at the store. Taxes there. We buy a house. We owe property taxes the rest of our life. We work. We got to pay the government taxes. Why is everything we're doing requiring a fee to our government? It's because our government is a for-profit corporation, and we're the cogs in the machine that they number as soon as we're born so that they can track us and make sure that we're doing our part, keeping the machine going. And that's why for years I've seen, like, we got to break the machine. We got to recognize that we're gears in this machine, and we need to stop doing what they expect us to do because it only serves them and it works against us. It's a meat grinder. But, hold on. My mom's calling in. I don't know if she knows what I'm live streaming. Let me see real quick. Do you know that I'm doing a live stream right now?
Okay, I'll hang up.
I'll call you right back, okay? Okay. I guess she didn't know. Sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. But I'll call back Mom, and I got to eat some food today. I haven't eaten anything yet, and I got a lot of work to do, but yeah, man, it's just sick, man. It's just sick. Again, dead on 4-6, the active black congressional representative after Biden becomes number 46 by carrying the black vote. And there were so many headlines, too, about how Biden had 71% of the vote and 71% of the black vote, and African Americans 71, the 20th prime, and the election was 2020. But yeah, if you got here late, just take that little red bar at the bottom, rewind it to the back, and we covered the death of Alcee Hastings in the news today in a clear race ritual. We covered the Easter Sunday shooting in Birmingham, Alabama. And then today's latest headline, the shooting in the shooting in Frederick, Maryland that ended at Fort Detrick with a 38-year-old shooter. And I just want to see if they move that to a higher headline. They have not. McConnell puts big business on alert. Again, they're just... It's kind of interesting that that story is not getting more attention. That a active representative of Congress is dead. I feel like that's even more interesting than these stories they have up here. Moderna's vaccine continues to show robust antibody levels 6 months into study. Okay. Let's talk about it in 10 years, which is how long they normally test vaccines for to make sure everything's safe. But in this case, I saw the news this morning, and they had a commercial on there and a woman getting the shot and talking about how safe and effective the vaccine is. I was like, God, I mean, don't people see this as just like... Okay, normally it takes at least 10 years to develop a vaccine, and the reason it takes that long is because they have to do a lot of testing over a long period of time to have greater results. But now in this day and age with the rushed out, and realize that these companies that rushed out the vaccines, man, they cleared themselves of liability if there's any wrongdoing. I mean, that should tell you a lot right there. They can advertise all day about how safe and effective it is, but think about everything else. We'll see what the long run says. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Have a great rest of your day. And again, tomorrow is TFR. I might very well be back on today, depending on what happens. But I'll definitely be out pounding some pavement. I'm doing my 2 hours a day in my community service. And yeah, we'll leave it there for now. Till next time.